All right, so this is the video for section 4.4, part A, and let me get to the front. It should look like this. But section 4.4 is designated primarily to factoring, and I know I've told you this once, and I'll say it again a million times before the course is over, but if you learn anything in Algebra 2 that will help you in the future, it's to know how to factor and to know how to factor very, very well. Okay, so you're going to be factoring in pre-calc, you're going to be factoring in calc, and you're going to be factoring in any math class beyond that. So it's super important to get a solid foundation of factoring. So if we look at these warm-ups, guys, these should be all review for you. Well, the warm-up should. Here we're trying to find the greatest common factor. So anytime we factor something, before we even considering factoring, we want to take out the greatest common factor. Okay, so if I look at number 1, I have my 6 and my 8. Okay, now I know that 2 goes into both 6 and 8. Okay, then I turn my attention to my r's. Now I have an r to the 3rd power and an r. And you can think of this as an r to the 1st if you want. But, so the only thing we could take out of both of these terms is an r. Okay, if we said r squared or r to the 3rd, we don't have that many over here, so we can't take out more than just a single r. And then last but not least, we have this s and this s, so we could also factor out an s. Okay, so when we do that, if we factor out a 2 from the 6, we get 3 left. If we factor out an r from the r cubed, we get r squared left. And if we factor out an s from the s, we just get a 1. Or we could just leave it like it is, because times 1 doesn't do anything. Okay, then we have a minus sign. If we factor a 2 from an 8, we're left with 4. And we factored the r out, we factored the s out, so that is it. Okay, now, if you want to check yourself, what you could do is you could distribute this through. Okay, and if you distribute this through, 2 times 3 is 6. R to the 1st times r squared is r cubed. Let me get rid of that. And then the s times nothing is just an s, and then minus, if we distribute this, it'd be 8rs, which is the same thing as what we started with. All right, let's do number 2 here. Okay, so we could notice my 3, 3, and 3 for my numbers, so clearly I can just pull out a 3. Okay, and then I have an x here, an x here, and an x here, so I could also factor out an x. And now notice I only have a y here, and I only have a z here. So I can't factor out a y or a z because I don't have it in all 3 terms. Okay, so if I factor out a 3x, what I'm left with is just 3x, this is a 1, plus, if I pull out the 3 and the x, I'm left with a y, minus, and if I factor out the 3 and the x, I'm just left with a z. Okay, now once again, if you want to double check yourself, you can distribute this into all 3 places, and so 3x times 1 is just 3x, 3x times y is a plus 3xy, and then a 3x minus z is just a minus 3xz, and as you can see, these are the same things. Okay, so go ahead and pause this and try to do 3 and 4. Guys, this is nothing new. This is something you should be very comfortable doing. So pause this, do those, and then we'll go over them. All right, so this is what you should have gotten on 3. Okay, right here. And this is what you should have gotten on 4, and you had a couple terms that canceled out. Now, some of you probably didn't pull out the negative here, which is okay for now. But anytime you have parentheses, if you can make this leading term right here, if you can make it positive, that's going to make your life a lot easier in the long run. So anytime I see that as a negative, when I do my GCF, I'm going to pull out a negative with it to make that a positive, just because it'll make it easier later. All right, so let's look at example 1, and each of these should be a review as well. Okay, so first and foremost, before we factor anything, I want to look for a GCF. Okay, so if I look at A, I notice each of these terms I can factor out an x. And when I do, I'm left with x squared minus 4x minus 5. Okay, Now, I want to go ahead and see if this factors more. So I want two numbers that multiply to a times c, which is -5, but add to b, which is -4. Okay, so yes, we do have those two numbers. It'd be -5 and +1. Okay, and so when I put my -5 and +1 in for this, I get x times x squared minus 5x plus an x minus 5. Okay, and then I can box it. So we have an x squared minus 5x plus 5, plus x, plus x, and then minus 5. Okay, now if I want to pull out my GCF here, I can pull out an x from both terms, and that means this has to be an x. If this is x and the area of this is -5x, this has to be a -5. This has to be a 1, and if I did it right, 1 times -5 is this -5. So here are my factors. Okay, so I can rewrite this as x minus 5 and an x plus 1. Okay, but then I also don't forget your x that you've already factored out. So this would be my final factored form. All right, if I look at b here, first thing I want to do is see if I can find a GCF. Well, there's x squared here and an x here, no x, so I can't factor out an x. But I do notice that 6, 24, and 24, I can pull out a 6 from each of those. So when I do, I'm left with x squared minus 4x plus 4. Okay, then I just have this quadratic equation here, and to see if that factors, I'm going to check to see if there's any two numbers that multiply to a times c, so 1 times 4 is 4, but add to b, which is -4. Okay, well, that would be -2 and -2, because -2 times -2 is 4, and -2 plus -2 is -4. So I can change this here to just x squared minus 2x minus another 2x plus 4. Okay, and then if I go ahead and put this in the box, I have x squared minus 2x minus 2x plus 4. And so I can factor an x and an x. This is x, this has to be a -2, and this has to be a -2, so this is just 6 parentheses, x minus 2, x minus 2. And then if I simplify that one step further, this is 6, x minus 2 squared. So that would be b in fully factored form. Okay, now I want you to go ahead and try C on your own. Pause this video, try C, and then we'll go over it. Alright, so this is what you should have gotten. Okay, you should have been able to pull out and recognize that 5z squared was your GCF. And when you did that, you got this in parentheses. So this in parentheses is what we want to try to factor. So two numbers that multiply to 9 and add to 6 would be +3 and +3. So we'd take those two 3's and put them here and here. So now we have 4 terms, and then we can put each term in the box. Okay, and when you do that and you factor, you get z plus 3 and z plus 3, which reduces here to 5z squared parentheses z plus 3 and then squared.